The United States Conference of Mayors has come together to work on the issues that have shaped our country and guided its success. Now more than ever, Americans are demanding that their leaders work together.
We are committing the resources of the conference to a consistent bipartisan direction for the next 24 months, based on the simple notion that together, everyone achieves more. We are committed to a 2-year plan focused on 3 strategic priorities, 3 I's to help cities thrive across the country.
Infrastructure is one of the most important issues facing America, and mayors are ready to stop talking and start digging. Local government is best suited to identify, prioritize infrastructure needs, and execute on them.
Mayors are being faced with more demands and less funding, making innovation an essential part of our 2-year playbook. We're bringing together and socializing some of the nation's best practices and cutting-edge technologies to help set up cities for success.
As leaders, we understand it's our job to create a culture of inclusion and an environment that lifts everyone up. Together, we'll work to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to take an active role in building our communities.
Bipartisan, civil, honest, and productive conversations among mayors, often working collegially with our friends in Washington, can drive real and meaningful change in this country.
We look forward to continuing to work with mayors to improve the quality of life in every corner of this country. Through our strategic focus on the 3 I's, we invite you to join us.
Welcome back. I hope those of you who attended the morning's forums enjoyed them. Today's lunch is sponsored by AT&T. With us is Mike Zito, the Vice President of AT&T's Internet of Things and General Manager of AT&T Smart Cities. He's responsible for the teams that drive the overall strategy, product development, business development, and go-to-market strategy for AT&T's global smart cities business, the drones, the IoT, FirstNet, and public-private partnerships as well. Please join me in welcoming Mike Zito to the stage. Mike.
Thank you, Mayor Benjamin. Appreciate that introduction. And good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me today. Thank you for dropping those plates, too. It's really exciting for myself and AT&T to be here in Boston at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and it's been a great event so far. So, Mayor Benjamin, Mayor Walsh, thank you for your leadership in hosting this. Thank you to the entire team managing this year's conference. It really has been amazing. And, I lived in Boston for almost 10 years right out of college in the North End, and I was treated like family from day one. It was an amazing experience, and the city of Boston absolutely changed my life. The people and the culture here are second to none, and the Italian food in my old neighborhood is pretty incredible too, so make sure you visit if you get a chance. This year's theme of infrastructure, innovation, and inclusion is the perfect theme for a conference held in this great city. And I saw these things come together and drive change right in front of my eyes when I was living on Salem Street with the Big Dig project many years ago. It was an innovative infrastructure project that has absolutely changed the city of Boston and developed space that created inclusion. And like myself, AT&T shares a special bond with the city of Boston and its people. For 20 years, AT&T has supported the mayor's office on a program called Holiday Calls that it gives elderly community members the ability to call loved ones overseas. And for the past 2 years, we connected Iris smart glasses to assist local resident and near-blind runner Eric Manser run the Boston Marathon. This experience would have otherwise been nearly impossible. And these are only a few of the examples of what happens when passion, innovation, inclusion, and collaboration come together to better the community. Boston has a long history leading the nation in fostering entrepreneurial growth through innovation. And we have similar passion at AT&T as we're building out our own network and really getting ready for the next generation. Boston has built out a network of world-class universities, startups, talent, and again, AT&T is continuing to build the largest, most reliable network by expanding our infrastructure. This year, we've brought 5G evolution technology to 141 markets to be in 500 by the end of 2018. We'll also be the first U.S. carrier to deploy a mobile 5G network starting with 12 U.S. cities in the U.S. this year. We'll be in Atlanta, Dallas, and Waco with more to come in 2019 and beyond. 5G will transform almost every single industry and ultimately our cities, as you all know, and we've talked about this week. So think about it. It could allow a hospital to respond faster to changes in patients' vital signs, or enable remote telemedicine or robotics-assisted surgery. Another example that's near and dear to all of us is public safety. First responders could attach a wearable camera to their vest for see what I see capabilities, providing data in real time to support search and rescue. Along with cameras and wearable sensors, data can be provided to incident commanders and first responders as the incidents unfold. Coupled with FirstNet, these 5G capabilities could truly be life-changing and life-saving. Public safety still remains in the top 3 challenges that mayors are focused on, along with traffic and economic growth. This year, our FirstNet team began deploying public safety's first dedicated first responder network, and it's already deployed in nearly 650 public safety agencies in 48 states. So it's really gotten traction and been embraced. The FirstNet network allows you to take advantage of first responder services, and the FirstNet network delivers value-added capabilities and benefits that commercial networks just can't match. Priority and preemption, incident management, and putting local controls in the hands of the first responders protecting the community are just a few of those benefits. The first responders at this year's Boston Marathon were among the first to experience what this network has to offer. The fire, police, and incident response teams from Boston and Brookline tested a variety of devices and applications connected to FirstNet's dedicated core network. They use location tracking applications to help commanders locate personnel and resources for coordinated response efforts. And the Boston Fire Department leveraged the added visibility to pinpoint the exact location of an individual responder and communicate the information back to the mobile command units that were deployed. AT&T will do our part in keeping Boston and the rest of America safe. We'll continue to deliver next-generation public safety technologies for years to come. We also understand that public safety is just one concern for many of you in the room. Every day, you're tasked with finding solutions to traffic jams, water scarcity, energy consumption, and a myriad of other issues that are important to the livelihood of your residents. AT&T is already working with many of you to address these challenges and others through our Spotlight Cities. We've highlighted the value of embracing smart solutions for the community, whether it's thousands of kilowatt hours saved from smart LED lighting in Dallas and Atlanta, connecting passengers on their commute in Montgomery County, Maryland, bridging the digital divide, and improving public safety in Miami-Dade County with Mayor Jimenez, or gaining near real-time insights and alerts on infrastructure monitoring in Portland for roads and bridges with Mayor Wheeler. These are great examples of infrastructure, innovation, and inclusion coming together to make a huge impact for your citizens and businesses that you serve. We're also deploying smart irrigation and smart water metering solutions across the country. It's absolutely critical to address sustainable use of water. Every day, 6 billion gallons of treated water is lost due to leaking pipes in the United States. It's a problem that you all and we are dealing with across the U.S. and across the world. Today, we're excited to announce that Badger Meter joined our Smart Cities Alliance. This addition to our Smart Cities ecosystem will help solve some of those major water loss issues that you're facing. Smart city initiatives can be perceived as unaffordable, but public-private partnerships and the public and private sector need to come together to think creatively and think about financing, and we heard about this yesterday. According to a recent study, public-private partnerships are the most effective financing model for smart cities initiatives. This type of partnership can help you address the digital divide, provide new data to inform smarter decision-making, and bring next-generation technology to your community faster. And that's one of our missions at AT&T. Myself and AT&T are extremely excited about the future and what we can achieve together with you in partnership with your cities. And we know that together we can make a difference investing in infrastructure, innovation, and including all to benefit from the change that we can drive together. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Enjoy this amazing city. Be well, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mike. Next, we'll hear from Mayor Kirk Caldwell of Honolulu, Hawaii. Mayor Caldwell is a strong member of this organization. We're so honored that he will host next year's 87th annual meeting. please join me in welcoming and thanking Honolulu Mayor Kurt Caldwell. Mayor.
Ke ala o Kalipoa. He ho'o heno ke ike aku ke kai moana nuila nui ke aloha e hi'i pori nei me ke ala o Kalipoa. Kalimu
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor of the City and County of Honolulu, Kirk Caldwell.
Good afternoon and aloha. Oh, that feels great, bouncing off of my chest back out to all of you. I have to say, being here in Boston, where our American experiment in democracy started so long ago, and we've seen that democracy in action while we've been up here, whether it be the Pride Parade yesterday, our climate change conference, or a lot of the other things that have happened up here. We want to thank Mayor Walsh for all he's done to put on an incredible, incredible conference. Big round of applause for Mayor Walsh. And now it's our job, the City and County of Honolulu, to make sure that when you come next year, at the end of June, that you celebrate who we are as a people. You know, as I mentioned, democracy started here in Boston. It traveled down the eastern seaboard, it crossed our country, and it ended up in Hawaii. In 1959, we became the 50th state. We are part of that story that started here. President John F. Kennedy went to the U.S. Conference of Mayors in Honolulu in 1963. And he gave a powerful speech. Some of you may have seen it shown last year in Miami, where he talked about his hope that someday the world, our country and this world, looks like Hawaii. Because in Hawaii, none of us are in the majority. I'm Caucasian. The Hawaiians call us haole. Haole, ha is breath. Ole is without. They say we're without breath because we're kind of pale and we look dead. We're 21% of the population. The Japanese are 24, the Filipinos are 20. We are all minorities. But yet we sit around tables like the ones you're sitting around today, and we always will talk about, so where did you come from? How did you get here? And we're looking for links and bridges to connect. And that is that aloha spirit. It's the best part of our country. We've heard a lot of talk about us. We are a place that does not divide. We're a place that is looking to build bridges. And we're looking to build a bridge with all of you to come to Honolulu, to feel that aloha, to feel that connection, to celebrate our differences in the fact that all of us came from somewhere else. Even the native Hawaiians came on double-hull sailing canoes from the South Pacific to Hawaii. We all came from somewhere else, but we gather. And you're going to be gathering in the City and County of Honolulu on the most isolated group of islands you can find anywhere in the world from another major landmass. And we are going to have fun. And we're going to learn. And we're going to show off to each other the things that we do so we can take it back to our cities. And so I'm inviting all of you, please, all of you, no matter whether you're flying from the East Coast or the West Coast or the middle of the country, that you make that effort so we can celebrate together. Now, before I leave the stage, I wanted to introduce someone. You know, I think of my generation, of another Kennedy, my defining moment, when people say, where were you when John F. Kennedy was assassinated? I can think about, yes, I was in the 4th grade at Hilo Union School on the island of Hawaii. And I can think about exactly what class I was in. For my generation. For our daughter Maya, her moment is 9/11. But for my father's generation, the greatest generation, it was the attack on Pearl Harbor. Where were you when Pearl Harbor got attacked? The war that brought the United States, World War II, started when Pearl Harbor was attacked. And it ended when we dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The only time the atomic bomb was ever used in the history of the world, and we hope it'll never, ever be used again. So Dwight D. Eisenhower, when he became president, didn't want to see another world war. And he thought that the best way to avoid that is by having people talk to people. And he started this Sister City program because he felt it was at cities, and we all know this as mayors and those who work in cities, is always about people to people. And so he started the Sister City relationship. And our first sister city in 1959, when we became a state, was with Hiroshima. And Hiroshima's first sister city relationship was with Honolulu, where the war began and where the war ended. And there's no more powerful relationship that our two cities have. We talk about building this bridge to peace that is solid. Foundation is strong, and we continually renew it when we go to Hiroshima on the anniversary of the dropping of the atomic bomb. And we were so proud when our President Barack Obama went there for the first time, the first President of the United States, 2 years ago. And so I have the distinct honor, the real honor and privilege to introduce the mayor of Hiroshima, Mayor Matsui, to come out and talk to you for a few minutes. It tells us about the unique thing that we are, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, that we can reach to other parts, to other countries, to other cities, to talk about things we all connect to. And that's about peace. So with no further delay, Mayor Matsui, the mayor of Hiroshima.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. Thank you very much indeed. I am Kazumi Matsui, Mayor of Hiroshima. First, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the United States Conference of Mayors for its ongoing support of Mayors for Peace, as expressed in its resolution, adopting annually since 2012. It is an honor and pleasure to have the opportunity to address you. As a mayor of Hiroshima, I serve as the president of Mayors for Peace, an international non-partisan, non-governmental organization. More than 7,500 member cities in 163 countries and regions, including 213 US cities, are working together to achieve two key objectives: realization of a world without nuclear weapons and the realization of safe and resilient cities, which we believe will lead us to our ultimate goal, lasting world peace. Let me tell you a little bit about my city and its citizens. Almost 73 years ago, on August 6, 1945, a single atomic bomb reduced the city to a ruin. Those who barely managed to survive have been tormented by lifelong suffering. They have gone through the excruciating sorrow of losing their beloved families and friends, the long-term effects of radiation, and the constant anxiety about their health and the health of the children and the grandchildren, having experienced unbearable devastation and sorrow. The airborne survivors, known as the Hibakusha, have reached the unshakable conviction that no one else should ever suffer as we have. The average age of the Hibakusha is now over 81 years, yet they continue to passionately appeal for nuclear abolition and world peace. Their earnest desire is to witness the prohibition and elimination of nuclear weapons in their lifetime. The indescribable devastation and sorrow experienced by the Hibakusha is not a thing of past. As long as nuclear weapons exist and national leaders threaten their use, nuclear war could erupt at any moment by accident, miscalculation, or design. On January 25th of this year, the bulletin of the atomic scientists moved their hand of its doomsday clock to 2 minutes to midnight, as close as it's ever been set since its inception in 1947, citing the failure of world leaders deal with looming threat of nuclear war and climate change, and stating the world is not only more dangerous now than it was a year ago, it is as threatening as it has been since World War II. Indeed, tension between the United States and Russia have risen to a level not seen since the Cold War. And this is only one of many nuclear flashpoints from the Korean Peninsula to the South China Sea to the Middle East and South Asia, where all of the nuclear-armed states are engaged in unpredictable conflict that could catastrophically escalate out of control. To make matters worse, all of the nuclear-armed states are spending billions of dollars to modernize or upgrade their arsenal, money that could be much more constructively spent to meet the needs of cities and their people. No one can predict how the US-North Korean summit will affect Northeast Asia, how the current future of the JCPOA will affect the Middle East. I sincerely hope that world leaders will resolve these and other passionate global issues through peaceful means and demonstrate good faith leadership in effort to achieve a world free from nuclear weapons. In this regard, I would also like to ask everyone here to take up the Hibakusha's urgent appeal for creation of a world without nuclear weapons, and to take your own action that reflect their fervent wish. As awareness of the inhumanity of nuclear weapons has spread, so has the global call for their prohibition and elimination. However, we are not making any progress on the actual disarmament, and I fear that the situation could even regress. We need a breakthrough now, and I'm here to share my sense of urgency with you, my fellow mayors. The common challenge faced by all mayors is to ensure the safety and peaceful lives of our citizens. To this end, Mayors for Peace encourage member cities to work together across national borders and cultivate mutual trust and respect. We also support member cities' effort to address their own national and regional priorities, such as climate change, homelessness, migration, gun violence, and terrorism. As we pursue our common goals of a world without nuclear weapons and lasting world peace, we honor each member's autonomy in building safe and resilient cities. In the United States, we are very pleased to have the Des Moines as Vice President of Mayors for Peace and the lead city. We encourage the youth member led by Des Moines to act the municipal level to raise public awareness about the growing danger of war, as well as the need for creating safe and resilient cities and a peaceful world without nuclear weapons to ensure substantial development. We sincerely hope that U.S. member cities led by Des Moines will engage the proactive activities of their own and take initiative in realizing the peaceful world Hibakushas have been fervently wishing for. The Hiroshima Secretariat will not spare any effort to support U.S. member cities' initiative for peace. In closing, I would like to invite all U.S. mayors to join Mayors for Peace and help us reach our goal of 10,000 member cities by 2020. Please help Des Moines Mayors Blanc County build a strong U.S. chapter. It is my sincere hope going forward that we will continue to deepen collaboration between the United States Conference of Mayors and Mayors for Peace. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Matsui, and Mayor Caldwell. We're so honored that Mayor Matsui traveled to be here with us today. Our next speaker is the Mayor of Stockton, California, Michael Tubbs. Michael is the first African-American mayor of Stockton and the youngest mayor of a city with a population larger than 100,000 ever elected in American history. Mayor Tubbs is here to speak on the topic of universal basic income. Please welcome Mayor Michael Tubbs to the stage.
Thank you, Mayor Benjamin, for the kind introduction. Thank you, Mayor Walsh, for hosting. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Tubbs, and I'm not the intern. I'm the mayor of the city of Stockton, California. As mayor of my hometown, I've lived through a lot of the challenges that many of my constituents face. And I'm also fortunate to also represent what opportunity can mean when given to underserved communities. You see, Stockton is a city on the rise, but we have a lot of work to do. A quarter of our population lives under the poverty line. Our average annual salary is $15,000 below the country's. And like many of your cities, our cost of living is rising, and jobs are not providing residents with the economic stability and benefits that they once did. So while thinking about positioning Stockton and our economy for the future, I'm reminded of people like Louisa in my community, people that need the economy to work for them here and now. You see, Louisa is a school crossing guard and a playground monitor working at one of our local schools. She is a mother, and she works incredibly hard, and guess what? She still struggles to make ends meet. When we asked her what would she do with an additional $500 a month, she said it would put a little relief on my stress. You see, Louisa doesn't take simple things for granted. Making minimum wage, she can't even remember the last time she had a day off or has been able to take her children to the movies. And our communities are filled with folks like Louisa, who are working harder and harder only to fall further and further behind as rents and cost of living continues to rise while wages continue to remain stagnant. In Stockton, for example, 52% of all our jobs are minimum wage. And again, the median household income in our community is well below the national and state average at $46,000. And these statistics, coupled with the amount of effort I see in everyday Stocktonians are putting in to advance themselves, cause me to be unapologetic about the need to be bold about finding solutions to these issues. To that end, this year we launched the Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration, or SEED, the nation's first mayoral-led guaranteed income demonstration that will give a select number of families $500 a month for 18 months starting next year. We were able to partner with the Economic Security Project and the Goldhirsch Foundation to raise an initial $1.5 million in private money for this demonstration, meaning in this iteration, no taxpayer dollars are being used. And this idea of a basic income or universal basic income, it's not a new one, but it's one that's old as this republic itself. You see, Thomas Paine talked about this in the Agrarian Revolution, and Dr. King, 50 years ago, right before his assassination, said that this nation, to abolish poverty, had to have a basic income paid at the national median income. And I'm incredibly excited for this demonstration because the eyes of the nation will be on Stockton, and we have an opportunity to show the resilience, resourcefulness, and the humanity of our residents. Louisa said it best when she said something as small as $500 a month would help put a relief on her stress, would help her relax a little bit. But Stockton is not a city, nor is it the only city that needs incremental political steps. The way our residents are struggling throughout this nation necessitates bold action. And that's why we're embracing several other policies that aim to get to the heart of the problems constituents face instead of minor interventions that may be less controversial, but only address symptomatic issues. And we know far too well there may be political gridlock in DC, but as mayors, we have the ability and the responsibility to bring meaningful change to our communities. In Stockton, having a successful basic income demonstration will be taking a bold step forward towards building a program that can be replicated across the country and hopefully make it to the national level one day as well. And yes, we are all politicians, so of course we have to be ready to address critiques of our proposals. Over the past 5 months, I've had conversations with luminaries like Governor Sarah Palin, luminaries like Chuck Woolery from Wheel of Fortune, I guess the Love Boat, about about the merits of a basic income proposal. And a couple things keep coming up. The first is this idea that if you give people $500 a month, they will stop working. And when I hear that, I think of people like my single mother, who's the hardest working woman I know, who worked incredibly hard, and $500 a month wouldn't be enough for her to stop working. It would have allowed her to be a little less stressed, spend a little more time with her kids, and be able to save for a rainy day. And my mom is not alone. The data shows us that people keep working when you provide them with cash, and that they overwhelmingly put it to good use. We see this in recent research on Alaska from the Permanent Dividend Fund, as well as a basic income pilot underway in Canada. Additionally, we've had conversations with people about the idea of the dignity of work, that by giving people $500 a month, we're diminishing the dignity of work. And our response has been that, and I may be a little bit flippant in saying this, but I don't see anything incredibly dignified of working 12 hours a day, not seeing your families, commuting 3 hours to work, and still not being able to pay your bills. I would argue, again, that's more stressful and anxiety-producing than dignified. And I think providing people with an income floor actually allows people to live with dignity, with certainty that not luxuries, but necessities like lights, like bills, like housing, like transportation will be taken care of. Another popular retort we hear from folks is that, what will people do with the money? They'll use it on drugs, or they'll use it on bad things, or they'll use it to buy TVs. And again, the research tells us in studies done throughout this world that when you trust people to be the architects of their own lives, to be smart agents, they make good choices. Good things go up, bad things go down. Over the past month, we spent countless hours in community meetings, and I've heard no one say they would buy alcohol with the money. I've heard no one say they'll buy TVs, but I have heard parents say, I could afford childcare with $500 a month. I've heard folks say I could go to school and not have to work full time because I have enough money to pay for books. I've heard folks say they could spend $500 on transportation to get to work. I've heard a million reasons how people, middle-class people, lower middle-class people, and working poor people will utilize $500 a month, and none of it talks about drugs or TVs. So again, $500 a month is not meant to be a silver bullet. It's just meant to provide a much-needed financial cushion that too many of our residents just don't have. When you consider this fact, 1 out of every 2 Americans, so 1 out of every 2 people in your cities, can't afford one $400 emergency, it's not difficult to see the potential impact this money could have in providing a floor of economic stability. As mayors, I truly believe we are called to not only believe in the potential of our cities, but in the potential of the people who make them. The basic income demonstration in Stockton is a bet not on infrastructure. It's a bet not on the company to come save us, but it's a bet and an investment in the capacity and the ability of my constituents to save themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Tubbs. A majority of poor families spend more than half of their income on housing. With increasing housing costs, evictions have become a common occurrence in American cities. While foreclosures are down from their high during the housing crisis, evictions have actually increased. Our next two speakers will share their thoughts and important insights into the problem of housing evictions. Our first speaker is Professor of Urban Policy and Planning, Ingrid Gould Ellen of NYU's Wagner Graduate School of Public Service. And after Professor Ellen, we'll hear from the Mayor of Richmond, Virginia, LeVar Stoney. So please welcome Professor Ingrid Gould Ellen.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here. I want to start by saying that I'm on the faculty at the Wagner School at NYU, and I believe that we are the only policy school in the country that's named after a mayor. And many of us, yes, we are, so it's a special privilege for me to be here. Many of us focus on local policy issues and local problems. We understand that there's more opportunity for innovation and experimentation at the local level. We also understand that mayors are closer to the issues and issues on the ground. And I want to talk about one of those issues today, which is housing insecurity. And I don't think I have to stand up here and tell you that housing security and housing insecurity is a growing issue for families in your cities. But I can tell you that it wasn't always the case. So back in 1960, only 1 in 4 renters in the United States were rent burdened or paid more than 30% of their income on rent. Today, that share is half. And the rent burdens are climbing up the income ladder. At the same time, income volatility is also rising. So my colleague at the Wagner School, Jonathan Morduck, through his Financial Diaries project, collected detailed financial information, monthly information from 235 low and moderate income households across the United States. And his research showed that the typical family in their study experienced 5 significant swings in income over the course of a single year. Right. Now, this is not new, but this income volatility is growing. And it comes from these families were losing their jobs, they were changing jobs, they were experiencing fluctuation in the side jobs that many of them took on. And these two trends together are a lethal combination, right? When you're paying such high shares of your income on rent, it means that you can't save the resources that you need to make it through the bumps in the road that you inevitably hit. And the result is increased displacement risk. Low-income families in the United States move much more often than higher-income families. And about 1 in 5 low-income households moves each year, and about 1 in 4 low-income renters moves each year. Now, we don't know how many of these moves are involuntary. It's actually very difficult to collect nationally representative data on evictions. My friend and colleague, Matt Desmond, is making a heroic effort to collect information on evictions from across the country, but they are still sort of building and cleaning the data. I think that, but we certainly know that many renters face evictions. And the latest data from the census in 2013 suggested that more than 700,000 households across the country were threatened with eviction that year. And those households are disproportionately located in central cities. So about half of those threatened households are located in central cities, while only 1/3 of the population in the United States lives in central cities. I can also tell you that this is not just a problem in my home city of New York and other high-cost coastal cities. This is happening across the country. And as you can see here, there's actually more evictions in the South than anywhere else, although there are also more people and more renters in the South. The risk of eviction seems to be about the same across the regions of the country. It's also true that evictions appear to be very costly. Matt Desmond, powerfully showed the pain and upheaval that evictions can cause in his wonderful book, Evicted. And I'm trying now with my colleagues at the Furman Center to try to quantify those costs. And it's a little too early for me to give you the actual numbers yet, but I can tell you that the costs are high. Evicted individuals are more likely to end up homeless. They are more likely to end up hospitalized. And in general, when we add up these costs, the social costs of eviction typically surpass the amount of rent that a tenant owes. What does that mean? It means that we can potentially save public dollars by intervening early with emergency assistance to allow people to stay in their homes. It's also true that formal evictions may just be the tip of the iceberg. New data from HUD that should be coming out this summer that they're currently analyzing suggests that the number of informal evictions may be 4 times as high as formal evictions. So what can mayors do, right? Obviously, these are sort of these evictions are due to sort of macroeconomic forces that you have little control over, and I understand. I don't want to downplay the fact that the federal commitment in this area is waning, and I know that you're trying to do more with less, but there's a lot that mayors and city officials can do. And we are launching a website at the Furman Center together with Apt Associates this fall called localhousingsolutions.org, which provides a whole set of resources about local housing policy tools, local tools that can help families stay in their homes and address your housing affordability challenges more generally. This is a website that we put together with the expert guidance of 14 leading local housing practitioners around the country, including Mayor Walsh's wonderful, dogged, creative housing director, Sheila Dillon, it has, including, we have, the site includes, I think, 82 now policy tools, and then we're still populating it, 9 of which focus on combating displacement. I don't have time to go into details about all of those policy tools, but they include legal assistance for at-risk renters. So, for example, Mayor de Blasio, probably many of you know, signed into law an act last year that guaranteed legal representation for all low-income tenants in housing court, right? This is a sea change. In just before the law was passed, it's estimated about 1 in 10 tenants in housing courts were represented by a lawyer. 9 in 10 landlords were represented by a lawyer, all right? So this new law should help to level the playing field, and hopefully it will educate tenants about their rights and hopefully help many of them stay in their homes. It also includes, we have information about ways to adopt and examples of emergency assistance payments, programs to offer emergency assistance payments that can be very helpful. As I said, many tenants wind up in housing court because they have missed a few rent payments, and just all they need is sort of a small one-time infusion to help them get back on track. And as I said, our research suggests that actually can be socially beneficial, because the costs of social costs of evictions that you avoid are greater than that cost. They also include, a whole range of other policies, from just cause eviction policies to rights of first refusal. I will say, I do want to just end by saying that I think it's important not only to focus on policies that combat evictions. If many tenants are struggling to pay their rent, and only a minority end up in housing court. So if you focus only on eviction, you may win some important battles, but you're going to lose the war. And I think it's important that, and our website provides resources for you to develop a balanced housing strategy that includes efforts in each of these sort of 4 quadrants of this House, efforts to create and preserve dedicated affordable units, efforts to reduce barriers to new housing supply, efforts to help households access and afford private market homes, and also, finally, efforts to protect against displacement and poor housing conditions. Cities have been thriving over the last few decades, but I think that the rising affordability challenges threaten not only to undermine their fairness, but also their continued growth and prosperity. So I do hope that that this new website, localhousingsolutions.org, can be a resource for all of you in your efforts. I'm happy to answer any questions. Please feel free to reach out. And if you want to be a beta tester for the site, please let me know. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Well, first I want to begin by thanking President Benjamin for your leadership and for the opportunity to address this important issue with America's mayors. And thank you, Dr. Gould Ellen, for that comprehensive overview of a problem that requires recognition, understanding, and most importantly, action on the federal, state, and local level. The eviction issue first came to the national spotlight in 2016 when Princeton sociologist Matthew Desmond wrote "Evicted: Poverty and Profit in the American City." But the reality is that in cities across the country, especially in the South, and most notably in Virginia, this has been a problem for a number of years. Its roots are in Jim Crow, and we are witnessing the modern-day evolution of the plantation society, where the rights and privileges of the landowner hold dominion over the poor and disenfranchised tenant. And in a series of oppressive state laws and regulations that are being ruthlessly applied and enforced by landlords leveraging the legal system. Today, it is safe to say that Virginia is not only for lovers, it's also for landlords. According to Professor Desmond's Eviction Lab study, based on data collected in 2016, 5 of the top 10 cities were from Virginia. And my city, Richmond, has the highest eviction rate, the second highest eviction rate in the country at 11.4%, roughly 9% above the national average. Not surprisingly, this disproportionately affects the most vulnerable in our community. Roughly 1 in 4 of our residents lives under the poverty line, and 1 in 10 evictions are filed against tenants owing $350 or less. And in our HUD-run public housing communities, where much of this poverty is concentrated, nearly 1 in 4 residents had eviction notices filed against them in 2016. Now imagine the trauma, psychological and financial, that this produces in the families already struggling to survive, those families who are living on the brink. Desmond is famous for saying in his book, the fate of the African-American men is to be locked up, and African-American women to be locked out. As the son of a former felon who grew up on free and reduced lunch, I understand the impact of being poor and disenfranchised can have on a family. For all practical purposes, it locks you out of opportunity. Evictions lock you out of opportunity. That's why when I served as Secretary of the Commonwealth under Terry McAuliffe, governor, we worked to restore the rights of nearly 200,000 former offenders, many of whom were African American, who had been denied the right to vote and largely shut out of being full participants in society. Restoring rights is about restoring opportunity. Being locked out or evicted is the equivalent of losing opportunity. We know that evictions in our city disproportionately impact African Americans in single-parent households led by women with children. I've seen firsthand the impact of eviction can have on a family. My family, led by my grandmother, was never evicted from a home. However, my grandmother was like very many grandmothers out there. She was open and welcoming to all. So I saw a number of family, and friends who came to grandma's house after being locked out or evicted. The trauma from these evictions affect the ability of our most vulnerable adults to get jobs, access to health care, and other benefits like food stamps and the ability to rent or own property in the future. And it makes it harder for children to have the vital component of stability in their lives that is necessary for them to grow and learn. So where do we start? Well, a legal work group in our city that has been studying the issue has identified nearly 36 state laws and policies as creating obstacles for tenants and perpetuating the eviction crisis, the downward spiral. Virginia needs to adopt what many states will refer to as the warrant of habitability, where tenants in non-payment of rent cases can stay if they can demonstrate that the conditions under which they live in entitle them to rent credit that is equal to or greater than the unpaid rent. This would protect renters in two ways: by giving them the opportunity to stay and obligating a landlord to maintain a fit and habitable residence, but currently this does not happen in Virginia. We need to expand the right of redemption. Until about 1992, once a non-payment of rent case was filed, a tenancy could not be saved even if the landlord were made whole with the payment of rent, late fees, and court costs. Now, this can be done, but only once in a 12-month period, and there is no rational reason for this limitation. Once the landlord has been made whole, the tenant should be allowed to stay. But this does not happen in Virginia. We need to reform bond appeal on eviction cases. The simple act of fighting an eviction can bankrupt a family on the edge. Unlike every other civil case where the bond for appealing a judgment is the amount of the judgment, in Virginia, it is the amount of the judgment plus up to 12 months future rent in advance. Most states only require rent to be paid into court. Most states only require the month's rent to be paid. Not in Virginia, though. This needs to change. Local governments also have an opportunity to play an important role as well. I've spoken to Dr. Desmond, and we are looking forward to joining his Race to the Top challenge to potentially cut the number of evictions in half. We're also working toward the establishment of a city eviction diversion program, which would be a collaborative space for the courts and major stakeholders to help facilitate the transaction between landlord and tenant. Similar programs have developed in Durham, North Carolina, Lansing, and Detroit, Michigan. We are partnering with a local collaboration of housing advocates and legal services called CARE, the Campaign to Reduce Evictions. Last year, we convened a summit on affordable housing, a topic that I know was discussed yesterday here at this conference. And this year, we expanded our Affordable Housing Trust Fund by 33%, and I've pledged to build 1,500 new units of affordable housing in our city over the next 5 years. Mayors, thank you. Mayors and fellow leaders out there, we need to be just as intentional about the fix as our predecessors were about creating this misery. Our ultimate goal in the city of Richmond is not to move poverty around, but to reduce poverty itself. And that starts with providing residents with a stable living environment. In my recent conversation with Dr. Desmond, he called housing a vaccine for poverty, because housing is foundational. It's not a luxury. Like affordable health care and public education, we need to treat it more as a necessity, not a privilege, to which all of our residents are entitled. Our state laws and our local actions need to reflect these values. We are who we protect. So, ladies and gentlemen, this issue is a wake-up call and a call to action. In Richmond, we are working hard every day to answer that call and create opportunities for all of our residents. Because America is a place where we should be looking for ways to lift people up, rather than not kick people out, whether it's in an apartment or on a border. We should be welcoming them and not kicking them to the curb. I'm deeply grateful for President Benjamin for giving me this opportunity to address you all today, and I thank you for your time.
I got to tell you guys, I'm loving the policy leadership of our mayors. We're doing some really exciting things. All of our colleagues are. I want to thank both of our presenters. Now I'd like to call our host to the stage, a fantastic mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh, who's going to introduce our next speaker. Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chris Herron grew up in Fall River, Massachusetts, from a strong family with deep ties in the neighborhood. His father, Al, was a state representative. He served in the Massachusetts legislatures from 1985 to 1997. Chris was a standout at a young age at McDonald's All-American High School. His story is a real story of recovery. When I met him at the State House, and we started to talk about being in recovery. He goes anywhere people need to hear the message, and he's just an amazing person. He goes to not glamorous places. He goes to drug courts. He goes to treatment facilities, community centers, low-income neighborhoods. He talks in schools. He has a way with young people because young people know if you're not sincere, if you don't live it, and people know that with him. They listen to Chris. Chris Herron is a living proof that this disease can affect anyone. It doesn't matter how successful you are or how talented you are or where you come from. He took it to another level, the recovery community with the Herron Project, supporting people trying to establish their recovery. It also supports families, which is vital, which he'll talk about today. We're going to have a substance use prevention treatment recovery task force at 3 o'clock. But after Chris's conversation, Chris is going to tell us what's at stake. When I first met Chris, I think I met him about 5 years ago, I knew in his heart that he was the real deal. He's taken an incredibly tough situation and turned it into passing a message of hope around the world. It's my honor to introduce to you, from Fall River, Massachusetts, Chris Herron.
Thank you, Marty. 6 months ago, Marty approached me and he said, I need a favor. I have a couple of my buddies coming into town, some mayors from across the country. I just want you to say a couple of words to them. So yesterday I went on Twitter and I saw that. And I said, this isn't a couple of mayors. Over the last 8 years, I've dedicated my life to this, traveling all across the country, sharing my story. And I've been fortunate to walk into rooms and present in front of the NFL, the NBA. But over the last 8 years, I've had the responsibility of presenting in front of 1 million kids. And I truly believe in my heart that it's made a difference for some. I do this for many reasons. 1, to break the stigma. 2, because when it comes to kids, I believe we've gone horribly wrong. I think we put way too much focus on the worst day, and we forget the first day. We want to show our children pictures of drug addicts and say, look how horrible life is for them in the end, instead of sitting them down, looking them in the eye and asking them honestly, why would you take a chance by letting it begin? Every day I stand in front of children and I tell them the scariest thing about addiction and alcoholism is nobody knows who has it. Not one kid I've presented in front of out of the 1 million know they're the one. For me, my pivotal moment was on June 4th, 2008. I was 32 years old. I was a father of 2 beautiful children, and my wife was 8 months pregnant. Unfortunately, heroin had broke the heart of my family, as well as our spirit. My routine at 32 years old was far, far from being a Boston Celtic walking into practice. Now, it was just being available to get my kids on the school bus in the morning. As soon as I would, I'd walk up to the local liquor store and I'd buy a couple of pints of vodka. in my 30s, I couldn't afford the hustle of heroin. So I fell in love with cheap vodka. And on June 4th, 2008, I'm sitting on my couch, drinking 2 pints of vodka, waiting for my kids to come home from school, trying my best to forget the regret. And I got a phone call from a buddy who said, if you come down here, I'm gonna throw you 4 bags of heroin for free. I jumped in my car, I drove, I parked on a side street. He pulled up on the side of me, threw 4 bags of heroin through my window and drove away from me. I sat there and I shot it. As soon as I did, I felt the overdose. This is my 4th. I know the feeling. My lungs feel like they're collapsing and I can't keep my eyes open. And I said, there's no way I can die here. So I started driving. I don't remember. I was found 2 miles away, crashed into a cemetery fence. 20 minutes later, I woke up in the back of an ambulance after being administered Narcan. And 2 minutes later, I'm walking into my hometown hospital in handcuffs with a police officer to see doctors that used to ask me for autographs and nurses who used to ask me to take pictures with them. Now they won't even talk to me, never mind treat me. I stood in a room until I was medically cleared. They took my blood pressure, they looked at the police officer and they said, get this junkie out of here, we're done with him. The police officer said, that man is a father. She said, that's all we do for him here. If he's lucky enough, we'll see him again. Odds are we won't. He grabbed me by my handcuffs and started walking me out. And as I'm walking out, he pulled me down this little hallway and he said, you don't know me, but when I was a little boy, I used to look up to you. Some of my best memories was going to Celtics games with my father to watch you. It kills me to see you in this condition. I can only imagine what it does to your family. So I'm gonna uncuff you and I'm gonna summons you because I don't think a jail cell's gonna solve this. He uncuffed me, handed me a summons, I put it in my pocket, and as I'm walking out of that hospital at 32 years old, I said to myself, if I can do one thing right with my life, I'm gonna walk to my friend's house, I'm gonna grab his gun, I'm gonna stick it in my mouth, and I'm gonna blow my head off. I have to kill myself today. I have to end this nightmare, not for me, for my poor family. And as I'm walking out of that hospital thinking about suicide, this nurse came running, yelling my name. When I turned around, she was in her 50s. She had a big smile on her face, and she was waving me back. I waved the woman off, and I kept walking. She said, don't you dare wave me off. I went to high school with your mother. But my mom died at a young age. I said, no disrespect to you, ma'am, but please don't talk about my mom. She said, no disrespect to you, son. Your mom's talking to me right now. She's asking me to fill in and do what she can't. She's begging me to get her little boy the help he needs. So please come back in this hospital and let me make some phone calls on her behalf. I walked back to the nurse, I hugged her, I collapsed in her arms and started crying. I hadn't talked about my mom for 5 years. I was so ashamed of the son I become. I went into her office, I listened to her call treatment center after treatment center, saying I have Chris Herron. He played for the Celtics and the Nuggets, but he has no money and no job and he's basically homeless with a beautiful family. Can you please give him a free bed? Everybody said no. So they kept me as long as they could, 8 days. I shot heroin for eight years. 8 days wasn't gonna fix it. And as I'm packing my bags, getting ready to go back home, the nurse walked into my room and handed me the phone, and on the other line it was a man I played in the NBA with by the name of Chris Mullin. Chris Mullin said, I know the impact this has on a family, and I have a gift for you. I want you to go away for 6 months. Will you please take it and get your family back? It's not the nicest center, but it's enough. At 32 years old, I knew that was probably the last gift I would get, so I jumped in a car and I drove. When I checked in, they told me for the first 30 days I could have no contact with my family. On day 30, nervous and anxious, to call my kids, I walked into the office, he handed me the phone, and on the other line it was my wife. She was crying. My wife said, I don't want to do this to you, but I'm in the hospital right now about to give birth to our little boy. My 4th overdose. My wife was 8 months pregnant, expecting our 3rd child. She said, I'm all by myself. Nobody's coming to help me. Will you please come home? I hung up the phone. I looked at my counselor. He said, it's a bad idea. You're not ready. I said, I promise you I am, sir. I ran back to my room. I packed my bags. I jumped on the train. 4 hours later, I was in the hospital to witness my little boy, Drew, come into this world as a sober father. I took that little boy. I wrapped him up in a blanket. I was so proud as a parent to be present and in recovery. 8 hours into it, there was a knock on the door, and right as soon as the door opened, a nurse walked in, and right behind her was my son, Christopher, and my daughter, Samantha. Christopher came running to me and hugged me and started crying. He said, Dad, I miss you, and I need you. I looked at Christopher and I said, I promise I'll be your dad. Please don't worry. I walked up to my wife, I grabbed the baby, I introduced the baby, our baby, to his big brother. I walked back to my wife and I said, I'm gonna go for a walk, I'll be right back. I didn't. I went to the liquor store. I needed to forget. So I bought a pint of vodka. I promised myself just a little. As soon as it hit my lips, I finished it. 30 minutes later, I had heroin in my hand. That night, I'm back on the street chasing death for a feeling. The next morning, I walked into the hospital and my wife was crying and devastated. She said, I sacrificed my whole life for you. And all I asked was to give me 24 hours, and you couldn't. So I'm gonna ask you to leave this hospital right now. Because you've broke my heart 1,000,000 times, but now look at them, you're breaking their heart. I promise you, you're never gonna see these kids again. At 32 years old, I walked out of that hospital thinking I had just failed at everything in my life. At 32 years old, I fought the thought of suicide. And by the grace of God, I jumped in a car and I went right back to that center. When I checked into that center in New York, the counselor who said he would pray for me and I wasn't ready, he said, Mr. Basketball, welcome back. I heard about your home visit. I said, if you heard about my home visit, there's nothing to talk about. I lost my family. He said, of course you lost your family, son. That's what drugs and alcohol do to families. They separate them. Be in my office at 10 o'clock tonight. I'm gonna help you turn this thing around. At 10 o'clock sharp, I knocked on his door thinking my counselor was gonna help me get out of this jam. As soon as I walked in, he flipped me a cell phone. I caught it. He said, now, Mr. Basketball, you're gonna do the most courageous thing you've ever done in your life. You're gonna call your wife and you're gonna promise that woman who's sacrificed her whole life for you, who lost everything because of you, that you will never contact her again. And then you're gonna ask her to sit down with her 3 children, and when she believes her 3 children are ready to hear it, explain to them when their daddy left them in the hospital that morning that their daddy died in a car accident. As your counselor, I'm telling you to give up and play dead for your family, because you're a no-good scumbag junkie who has no business being a father anyway. I tossed back that phone. I said, it's too late to call the hospital, but I'll come back in at 7 a.m. I promise you I'll play dead. As I walked out of his office on what seemed to be the worst night of my life, I walked back to my room in that treatment center. I walked up to the edge of my bed. I thought of my mother. And as soon as I did, I dropped to my knees and I started praying. That day I hit my knees was August 1st, 2008. By the grace of God, one day at a time and a whole lot of love and support in my life, August 1st, 2008 is my sobriety date. I thank God every day for that man's words. I thank God every day for the bad days. The bad days today have become blessings, the beauty of living life in recovery, getting a second chance, you find the silver lining in the sad stories. You become grateful for your worst moments. I've been given countless gifts on this journey in the last 10 years. But the greatest gift I've ever been able to give is that for the last 10 years, I've been the same dad. That's the only sorry they ever wanted to see. It was the only amends ever necessary to them. If it wasn't for the nurse, if it wasn't for the center, I wouldn't be a dad today. If the gift of treatment was not offered to me, we wouldn't be celebrating 10 years in August as a family. I've been married 20 years now. My wife is the star of the story. My son Christopher is 19. My daughter is 16. And my youngest is about to turn 10 years old with me. My wife and I decided to share our story publicly because we wanted to help people who were suffering, who were losing hope. Because the reality to me is I was this close to death, but I was this close to recovery. And someone gave me a second chance. And that second chance was not only for me, but my family. 8 years ago, I walked into a high school and I said, I'm gonna tell my story. This is all about drugs and alcohol. And I walked in and I told it in front of 3,500 kids. And all of a sudden, this little girl on the top raised her hand. And I called on her. And everybody laughed at her. Everybody bullied her up in the corner. So she dropped it and said, forget it. So I waited for her, but I lost her. And I walked out of that high school wondering, I'm thinking she's gonna tell me about her dad, her mom. 2 months later, that little girl had the courage to email me, Dear Mr. Herron, I was the girl with her hand up. I didn't have a question that day. It was the first time in my life I felt comfortable with telling my story. My father, he's an alcoholic. My mom, she suffers from depression. And for the last 4 years, my parents have locked themselves in their bedroom. And nobody's there to help them. So for the last 4 years, I've worn the same exact school clothes every day, Mr. Herron. And people laugh at me and make fun of me. They take pictures of me and bully me. And for the last 4 years, I've gone home from high school by myself with no friends. And my dad is drunk and my mom's suffering from sadness, and I don't know what to do for them. So, Mr. Herron, I go to my bedroom, I lock my door, I put my music on, I take my homework out. And I do the one thing I know I shouldn't. Mr. Herron, I roll up my sleeves and I cut myself really bad. I'm a cutter. And I'm struggling with self-harm. But I wanted you to know that you walked into my high school that day and you said you pray for just one kid. I promise you I'm that one kid. Because right after your assembly, after they made fun of me, I went in and confronted them and told them it's not my fault my dad is an alcoholic. And it's not my fault my mom suffers from mental illness. She said, Mr. Herron, I told them I know I'm ugly and I suffer, but it's not my fault that I have to wear the same school clothes every day. I hope taking pictures of me, making fun of me has helped you, because it's really hurt me. She said, since that day, Mr. Herron, those kids have never said another word to me. They don't take pictures, make fun, or bully me. And some have had the decency and courage to come up to me, say sorry, and offer to help me. So I just want to thank you, Mr. Herron. It wasn't your documentary. It was that day you walked into my high school, and I want you to know I'll always be your one kid you pray about. That little girl sends me an email every 30 days. I've been getting it for 7 years now. That little girl's email that I get every 30 days means more to me than anything I've ever accomplished in my life as a basketball player. That little girl's email is one of the main reasons why I do this. And 7 years ago, I had never heard of it. Unfortunately, it's all I hear today. I do this 250 times a year. I can go neck and neck with any politician in this room right now speaking publicly. Bring it. It's 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon and Marty couldn't even give me water. Thanks, Marty. You know, I walk into every room, and every room I walk into, in the back, I see the little girl in West Virginia who raised her hand and told me she lost 2 parents in the same day from an overdose. Every room I walk into, I see the little girl in Ohio whose mom started selling her on the internet when she was 6 for opiates. Every room I walk into, I see the mom in the 4th row in Pennsylvania who brought her 19-year-old daughter high on heroin because she already buried her 3 sons before the age of 22. Oh. You better give me more time. Honestly, I'm often asked, what would we do? What can we do to change this? For me personally, I'd put it all on prevention. I'd double down on education. And to be quite honest with you, I'm still ashamed that wellness isn't a core class in our school system. We need to begin when they walk into that door in kindergarten. We need to build them up, inspire them, and increase their awareness and self-esteem. We need to give them the tools to communicate in a safe place to talk about it. I will not stop doing what I do until wellness is a core class in our school. Geometry, algebra, come on, Mayor. Seriously? I haven't seen that triangle since I failed a class. It's an honor for me to do this, and it's a responsibility I will never, ever, ever take lightly. I am blessed to be here because of an amazing friend in recovery, a brother from Massachusetts who had the faith in me to deliver a message from the first time we met in Governor Patrick's office. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It was an absolute honor to be here. God bless you. Thank you.
What a testimony. Marty, thank you so much for bringing Chris. And Chris, thank you for sharing with all of us. This has been an amazing experience. We're going to be busy this afternoon, and I think we're all going to feel pretty doggone edified as we go into this afternoon because of this incredible testimony today. This afternoon between 3 and 5 o'clock, we have a great slate of some more best practices forums and meetings of some of our task forces. So tonight at 7, you're all invited to join us right around the corner. There's no need for a bus or a shuttle. We'll just walk on around the corner at the Boston Public Library, which I believe may be America's very first library. I read that somewhere. Or was it Philadelphia, Marty? I'm sorry. Okay. For a wonderful evening of food and music. Hope to see all of you there. Thank you guys so much. God bless you. We are adjourned.